Hello, hello, hello.
And welcome to the Hildebrand Law Firm topic for today.
I'm Kirsten Hildebrand,
And I'm Matt Kaplan.
and today we're going to talk about all of the small business owners that are out there. Now, I don't know about you, Matt, but one of my very, very favorite things to do is to do estate planning for people who own small businesses because it really is the heart of America.
Right. And it's their livelihood. The amount of time, the amount of energy that has gone into these people's businesses, it is really nice to know that, okay, if anything happens to me, nothing's going to happen to my business. The thing that I've spent so much time and effort building up. And a lot of people take so much pride in their business. And I think it's terrific.
Yes, exactly. So, you have this business and you nurture it and you nurture it and you see it go from being a infant to a baby, baby to a toddler, toddler to a child to a teenager. Now it's all grown up and now what? Do you just take it out back and let it on its own, or do you have a plan for making sure that the business can continue to prosper and grow and continue to develop even maybe beyond you? And so making sure that you have good thoughts in place regarding how you want to move the business as you may decide to exit the business is very, very important. That's typically called succession planning. And the way we get into succession planning is when we dovetail it with really good estate planning. So I'm going to tell a little story. There was a business owner who he had about $1 million or $1.5 million in real estate assets. And he was in his mid 50s. He was doing fine. He had a wife. He had one daughter who was about 10 years old. And he went into one of his properties and he never came out again. He had a stroke and he was just basically gone at that moment. Also, what was gone was any sense of where were all of the business assets, who was running what, where are the books, how can we continue to collect the rents, what is happening with the ownership interest, and who actually now inherits this, because he happened to also have a child of a different relationship. All of that was open to questioning, and it ended up being extremely chaotic because he had absolutely nothing in place. Now, even if he had, say, survived the stroke and he was in long-term care, there was not a single document in place that would have allowed for the transfer of his authority to someone else so that they could continue to run the business. So either way, it would have resulted in either, number one, a very expensive guardianship, trying to find somebody to step into his shoes to run the business if he was alive, or number two, a very expensive probate, because now nobody has a sense of what's going on. And somebody, an attorney, needs to be appointed to be able to step into those shoes and run the business. Is that what he wanted? Nobody knows. So that is one of the big issues with having a small business, is when you have no plan, the problems are just magnified.
Right. And also, one of the biggest problems is that is someone capable of actually taking over the business, making business decisions? You have to have some sort of a succession plan in place to make sure that if something happens to you, it doesn't automatically happen to your business. I know, a lot of small business people out there, they say, I am my business. And I think from a marketing standpoint, from a personality standpoint, I absolutely love it. Because 9 times out of 10, sell yourself. Most people are their businesses. I think that's terrific. However, businesses are not people. If businesses are not people, they should not fall to the same ills as people do. Businesses should not die. Businesses should not get divorced. Businesses should not have any of these addiction issues, become incapacitated. Businesses are not human beings. The problem is that if you don't get your estate planning in place, then whatever happens to you also happens to your business. And we want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, those are really good points. So, what do you think is the best approach overall if somebody owns a business? Well, I think first and foremost, they need to, regardless of how old they are, come in and get their estate planning done. Even if you're 30 or 40 or 50 years old and you feel like, wow, I've got so many years ahead of me, the bottom line is you just don't know. There could be a terrible incident. You could run your motorcycle off the road and all of a sudden now your business is left bereft of leadership. And that in and of itself is enough of a problem. But then the fact that you didn't pick that leadership is another problem.
Right. I have a client who is in his 80s who owns a bunch of homes and he still replaces the roof himself. How many people fall off of roofs, especially guys in their 80s? I mean, come on, dude. And he has nothing. We're getting something in place for him now, but the amount of danger people put
Yes.
themselves in on a daily basis, anything can happen.
Anything can happen. And it doesn't matter if you're 40 and you put the estate planning in place and you've got a good plan, that will go for your entire life.
Right.
So it's not like you have to wait until some certain magical moment. But I think the key is if we have somebody who comes in and they have a business, we will probably say to them, number one, get a power of attorney for finances in place that allows for somebody to take over your business if necessary. Occasionally, we've had a situation where we have two powers of attorney, one to handle just the business assets, and that might be, say, somebody who is the number two in the company, or people who are a little bit more knowledgeable, maybe somebody from the board of directors or whatnot. And then their second power of attorney for finances is relative to the other matters, the family matters. And so maybe that would be the spouse or children who would take over that portion of it. So that is sometimes something that we will do is bifurcate them. Also, really, really important to make sure that you have your business documents in place, that they're solid, that they're understandable. Do you know, I just got a new client the other day and we were looking at stock certificates that have literally gone back to the 1930s on this fifth generation owned family business. I mean, it's really cool. It should belong in a museum, but it doesn't help when we're trying to figure out who owns what right now. In fact, the only evidence we have for who owns what right now is on a little sticky note. That's it. So we are getting that situation taken care of. And thank goodness they came in and they wanted to do their estate planning, because my question was, all right, let's look at your business documents and let's see what the ownership interest looks like, because then we want to transfer that ownership interest over to a trust, because a trust then will be really important for moving that asset from the individual who's running the business over to the next generation without having to trigger a probate.
Right, and even if you're alive, we could have provisions in the trust to say if I ever become incapacitated, I want it to go to my number two, or I want it to go to my spouse, especially if it's a small family-owned business. We have those things. If you don't have all that information in there, kind of like what Kirsten was saying earlier, you might be screwed. You might need a guardianship. You might need all these other things that could cost a ton of time and take a lot of, cost a lot of money. And so we want to make sure, one of the biggest things that we do, what I love doing, just transfer that business into a trust. And what's really nice about it, it is so easy. It's a 2-page document, an assignment and acknowledgement. You transfer your whatever ownership share you have in the business into your trust. Now instead of you being the sole member or the president, your trust is the sole member. But you being the trustee of your trust, nothing changes.
It's easy though, because we have very, very detailed language inside of our trust that handle that situation. So just to be clear, no trust is created equal. And so you have to make sure that you have the right language inside of the trust to be able to handle that asset. So that's really important. I think also about how clarity is so critical. We have several families that come in and say one of the kids is running the business, but does that mean that the kid automatically gets the business without there also being some compensation or equalization out to the other kids? Does it mean the kid also gets the property and the building that the business is in? Or again, is there going to be some other way of handling that asset? And how is that going to play itself out within the context of that business's resources and what they can and cannot afford to do over X period of time? Laying all of that out before you get to the point where it's transition time is so helpful, because it gives goals. It also gives certainty, and also it protects against people from arguing and fighting and not having a sense of what was intended. So all of those reasons are really, really important.
Right. And one last thing that I want to mention is that depending on the type of trust that owns your business, and depending on what you decide to do, if you ever need long-term care, that business, depending on your state, could be totally off the table for the purposes of Medicaid. So you could apply for Medicaid, you would get approved, and that business would not be touchable. And so you could be in a nursing home or you could have long-term care, and your business will continue to thrive and provide for your family, even if you're needing some long-term care.
Great point. Well, thank you so much for joining us, because we are really interested in protecting your today and tomorrow, and we will see you next time.